In a small, quiet town nestled between rolling hills and vast fields, life moved at a predictable pace. The people here were friendly, but like in many places, there was an invisible line that separated them based on jobs, education, and even the color of their skin. At the center of this community was Lincoln High School, a place where generations of families had sent their children to learn, grow, and eventually graduate. Every year, the school hosted its annual graduation ceremony, a grand event filled with proud parents snapping photos, teachers beaming with pride, and students nervously clutching their diplomas. It was a tradition steeped in celebration and achievement, but for Evelyn Carter, it was just another day of work. Evelyn had been working as a janitor at Lincoln High for over 20 years. She was a woman in her late 40s, with warm brown skin, deep-set eyes that always seemed to carry a glimmer of kindness, and hands calloused from years of scrubbing floors and wiping down chalkboards. To most people, she was simply the janitor, someone who stayed in the background making sure the school ran smoothly without drawing much attention to herself. But those who took the time to get to know her discovered a woman full of wisdom, humor, and an unshakable spirit. Evelyn wasn't just a worker. She was a part of the fabric of the school. Every morning before the first bell rang, Evelyn could be found pushing her cart through the hallways, humming softly to herself as she cleaned. She knew every corner of the building, the squeaky floorboard, near room 12, the drafty window in the science lab, and the spot on the gymnasium wall where a basketball hoop had once fallen during a heated game. More importantly, she knew the students. Over the years, countless teenagers had passed through those halls, and Evelyn had become something of a confidant to many of them. If a student forgot their lunch money, she'd slip them a few dollars. If someone needed a quiet place to study, after school, she'd let them sit in the empty library while she tidied up nearby. And if a child was struggling, whether with grades, friendships, or life at home, she'd offer words of encouragement that stuck with them long after they left her presence. Despite her contributions, not everyone saw Evelyn the way her students did. Some teachers appreciated her hard work, but others barely acknowledged her beyond a quick thank you when she emptied their trash cans. Parents often mistook her for being uneducated because of her job and the fact that she didn't finish high school herself. There were whispers among certain groups at PTA meetings about how someone like her shouldn't have so much interaction with the kids. Even some of the students, influenced by the attitudes of adults around them, treated her dismissively, calling her the cleaning lady instead of using her name. Evelyn heard these things, of course, but she never let them break her. Instead, she focused on doing what she loved, helping others. The night of the graduation ceremony arrived, and the auditorium buzzed with excitement. Families dressed in their finest clothes filed into rows of chairs, cameras hanging around their necks. Teachers adjusted their robes and straightened name tags, preparing to congratulate their soon-to-be former students. Behind the scenes, Evelyn worked tirelessly to ensure everything was perfect. She polished the podium until it gleamed, arranged bouquets of flowers on tables, and made sure the stage was spotless. No one noticed her scurrying around, which was exactly how she preferred. Her role wasn't to stand in the spotlight, it was to make sure others could shine. As the ceremony began, the room fell silent. The principal welcomed everyone, speeches were given, and awards handed out. Everything seemed to follow the usual script until the master of ceremonies paused dramatically and announced, "And now we have a very special guest speaker joining us tonight." Murmurs rippled through the audience. A guest speaker? That wasn't on the program. People craned their necks, trying to see who would walk onto the stage. When Evelyn stepped forward, holding the microphone with both hands, the reaction was immediate and unexpected. At first, there was confusion. Then came the laughter. Not loud, cruel laughter, but the kind born out of disbelief. Someone whispered loudly enough for those nearby to hear, "What's she doing up there?" Others chuckled nervously, assuming it was a prank or a last-minute addition meant to lighten the mood. Evelyn stood still, taking in the sea of faces staring back at her. She felt the weight of their judgment pressing down, but instead of shrinking away, she squared her shoulders and smiled gently. This was her moment, whether they understood it yet or not. "Good evening," Evelyn began, her voice steady despite the nerves fluttering in her chest. The room grew quieter as people realized she was serious. I know many of you might be wondering why I'm standing here tonight. Let me start by saying thank you for allowing me to share this moment with all of you. Her tone was warm, inviting, and impossible to ignore. Slowly but surely, the initial amusement faded, replaced by curiosity. Who was this woman, really? What did she have to say? Evelyn went on to tell her story, weaving together memories of her childhood, struggles, and triumphs. She spoke about growing up poor, the challenges of dropping out of school to support her family, and the dreams she put on hold to make ends meet. Life hasn't always been easy, she admitted, her voice tinged with emotion. But I've learned that your worth isn't determined by your job title or the opinions of others. It's determined by how you treat people, how you face adversity, and how you choose to live your life. As she spoke, heads nodded throughout the audience. Students leaned forward in their seats, captivated by her words. Parents exchanged glances, realizing they had underestimated the woman standing before them. By the time Evelyn finished her speech, the atmosphere in the room had transformed completely. Gone were the chuckles and smirks. Instead, applause erupted, filling the auditorium with thunderous sound. People rose to their feet, clapping and cheering as Evelyn stood on the stage, tears glistening in her eyes. For the first time in her life, she felt truly seen, not as the janitor, but as a person worthy of respect and admiration. Little did she know, this was only the beginning of her journey. That night marked a turning point not just for Evelyn, but for everyone who witnessed her courage. In the days and weeks that followed, her story spread far beyond the walls of Lincoln High School. Local newspapers wrote articles praising her resilience and wisdom. Videos of her speech circulated online, inspiring strangers across the country. Suddenly, Evelyn found herself at the center of attention, not because of what she did for a living, but because of the powerful message she delivered. And though she remained humble, she couldn't help but feel a sense of fulfillment knowing that her voice had made a difference. For Evelyn, this newfound recognition wasn't just about validation, it was about opportunity. Inspired by the overwhelming response to her speech, she decided to pursue a goal she had buried deep within her heart for decades, earning her GED. With the support of the community she had served so faithfully, she enrolled in adult education classes and dedicated herself to studying. Balancing work, studies, and personal responsibilities wasn't easy, but Evelyn approached each challenge with determination. When she finally received her diploma, the entire town turned out to celebrate her achievement. This time, no one laughed. Only cheers echoed through the air. Looking back on her journey, Evelyn reflected on how far she had come. From cleaning floors to standing on stages, she had defied expectations and inspired countless others along the way. Her story reminded everyone that true success isn't measured by wealth or status, but by the positive influence we have on those around us. Though she remained humble, Evelyn couldn't help but feel proud of the legacy she was building, one built on kindness, hard work, and unwavering belief in the power of dreams. Years later, Evelyn's name continued to be spoken with reverence. High schools across the country invited her to speak at their graduations, eager for their students to hear her transformative message. What started as a single moment of bravery had blossomed into a lifelong mission to uplift and empower others. Evelyn proved that sometimes the most unexpected voices are the ones that change the world, and that laughter can turn into awe when someone dares to step into the spotlight and shine. The morning after the graduation ceremony, Evelyn woke up to a quiet house. The sun streamed through the thin curtains of her modest apartment, casting golden light across the worn furniture she had collected over the years. Her heart still felt heavy from the mix of emotions she had experienced the night before: nervousness, pride, and even a flicker of doubt about whether she had done the right thing by stepping onto that stage. But as she sipped her coffee and stared out the window at the sleepy town waking up below, something inside her shifted. For the first time in years, maybe even decades, Evelyn allowed herself to dream. Dreams weren't new to Evelyn. She had always been a dreamer, ever since she was a little girl growing up in a cramped apartment with her parents and 3 siblings. Back then, life had been hard, but full of hope. Her father worked long hours at a factory, while her mother cleaned houses to make ends meet. Money was tight, and sometimes dinner consisted of nothing more than bread and peanut butter. Yet, despite their struggles, Evelyn's parents instilled in her the belief that education was the key to a better future. If you work hard enough, her mother used to say, you can be anything you want to be. But life didn't give Evelyn much of a chance to follow that advice. When she was 16, her father fell ill, and the family's already fragile financial situation crumbled. Evelyn dropped out of school to take on odd jobs, washing dishes at diners, babysitting neighborhood kids, and eventually cleaning offices late into the night. At first, she told herself it was temporary. She promised herself she'd go back to school someday, earn her diploma, and chase the dreams she whispered about under her breath when no one else was listening. But as months turned into years, those promises began to fade. Life kept pulling her in different directions, leaving little room for the ambitions she once held so dear. Now, sitting in her kitchen with the memory of last night's applause still ringing in her ears, Evelyn realized it wasn't too late. The speech she had given hadn't just touched the hearts of others, it had reignited something within her own. That spark of determination she thought she had lost years ago came rushing back, stronger than ever. She decided then and there that she wouldn't let fear or self-doubt hold her back anymore. It was time to take control of her life and prove to herself that she was capable of achieving the dreams she had tucked away for so long. Later that day, Evelyn returned to Lincoln High School to clean up after the ceremony. As she swept the auditorium floor and gathered leftover programs scattered across the seats, she couldn't help but smile at the irony of it all. Just hours earlier, she had stood on this very stage, sharing her story with hundreds of people, who now knew her not as the janitor, but as someone with wisdom and resilience worth celebrating. While tidying up, she bumped into Mr. Thompson, the school's principal. He had stayed behind to oversee the cleanup and ensure everything was returned to its proper place. "Evelyn," he said warmly, approaching her with an extended hand, "I wanted to thank you personally for what you did last night. Your word, they were exactly what everyone needed to hear." Evelyn blushed, brushing a strand of graying hair behind her ear. "Thank you, Mr. Thompson. I wasn't sure if I should have said anything at all, but I'm glad it meant something to folks." "It meant a lot," he replied earnestly. "In fact, we've been getting calls and emails all morning from parents, teachers, even alumni. People are talking about how inspiring you were. Some have even suggested we create a scholarship fund in your name." Evelyn froze, her broom hovering midair. "A scholarship? For me?" Mr. Thompson nodded. "Yes. You've shown everyone here that it's never too late to pursue your goals. We think it would be fitting to honor your journey by helping other adults like you return to school and finish what they started." Tears welled up in Evelyn's eyes, but she quickly blinked them away. That's incredible. Thank you." As Mr. Thompson walked away, Evelyn leaned against her cleaning cart, overwhelmed by the weight of his words. A scholarship in her name? It sounded impossible, like something out of a movie where ordinary people suddenly become heroes. But deep down, she knew it wasn't just about her. It was about sending a message to anyone who felt stuck or forgotten. If a woman who spent 20 years scrubbing floors could inspire change, then surely others could find the courage to rewrite their own stories too. Over the next few weeks, Evelyn's life changed in ways she never imagined. News of her speech spread beyond the town, reaching newspapers, radio stations, and social media platforms. Articles praised her bravery and highlighted her commitment to education. Videos of her address went viral, racking up thousands of views and comments from strangers around the world. One viewer wrote, "You reminded me that my past doesn't define me. Thank you for speaking your truth." Another commented, "I'm 50 years old and haven't finished high school. After hearing your story, I'm signing up for classes tomorrow." Encouraged by the outpouring of support, Evelyn made a decision. She would enroll in adult education classes and finally get her GED. The idea terrified her, What if she failed? What if she wasn't smart enough? But she pushed those fears aside, reminding herself of the lessons she had shared on that stage. Success isn't about being perfect. It's about trying, failing, and trying again. Her journey wasn't easy. Balancing her job at the school with studying required sacrifice. Late nights became her norm as she pored over textbooks and completed assignments by the dim glow of a desk lamp. There were moments when frustration got the better of her, like when math problems seemed impossibly complex or when grammar rules refused to stick in her mind. On those days, she called her best friend Clara, who had always believed in her. "You're doing amazing, Evie," Clara would say. "Don't give up now." Clara wasn't the only one cheering her on. Word of Evelyn's efforts reached the students at Lincoln High, many of whom had been inspired by her speech. They started leaving notes of encouragement in her locker. A simple, "You've got this," scribbled on a scrap of paper or a drawing, of a trophy with the words "Future Graduate" written underneath. Even some of the teachers stopped by to offer tutoring sessions during lunch breaks. Slowly but surely, Evelyn began to see progress. Each small victory, a passing grade on a quiz, mastering a difficult concept, fueled her determination to keep going. Months later, Evelyn sat nervously in a testing center, staring at the clock as it ticked down the final minutes of her GED exam. Her hands trembled slightly as she filled in the last bubble on her answer sheet. When the proctor announced that time was up, Evelyn handed in her test booklet with a mixture of relief and anxiety. She had done everything she could. Now, all she could do was wait. The day the results arrived, Evelyn opened the envelope with shaking hands. Her eyes scanned the page, searching for the verdict. Then she saw it. Pass. She had passed every section of the exam. Tears streamed down her face as she clutched the letter to her chest. All those years of dreaming, doubting, and persevering had led to this moment. She had done it. She had earned her GED. When news of her accomplishment reached Lincoln High, the entire community rallied to celebrate. A special ceremony was organized in her honor, complete with balloons, banners, and a standing ovation from everyone in attendance. Parents hugged her tightly, thanking her for showing their children what true grit looked like. Students presented her with handmade cards and gifts, calling her their hero. Even those who had once dismissed her now approached her with genuine admiration, apologizing for underestimating her. For Evelyn, the celebration wasn't just about her achievement, it was about the ripple effect it created. Inspired by her example, several local organizations partnered to establish the Evelyn Carter Scholarship Fund, aimed at supporting adults seeking to continue their education. Dozens of applications poured in from individuals eager to follow in her footsteps. Evelyn found joy in reviewing each application, knowing she was helping pave the way for others to achieve their dreams. Reflecting on her journey, Evelyn realized how far she had come, not just academically but emotionally and spiritually. She had faced judgment, laughter, and doubt, yet she had risen above it all. Her story proved that greatness isn't confined to titles or professions. It lives within the hearts of those brave enough to rise above adversity. And though she remained humble, Evelyn couldn't help but feel proud of the legacy she was building, one built on kindness, resilience, and unwavering faith in the power of second chances. Years later, Evelyn's name continued to inspire generations. Schools across the country invited her to speak at graduations, eager for their students to hear her transformative message. What began as a single moment of courage had blossomed into a lifelong mission to uplift and empower others. Evelyn proved that sometimes the most unexpected voices are the ones that change the world, and that laughter can turn into awe when someone dares to step into the spotlight and shine. The months following Evelyn's GED achievement were nothing short of transformative, not just for her, but for the entire town. Her story had taken on a life of its own, spreading far beyond Lincoln High School and reaching communities she had never imagined. People from all walks of life began to see Evelyn not just as a janitor or a graduate, but as a symbol of hope and resilience. The scholarship fund created in her name gained momentum quickly. thanks to donations pouring in from local businesses, alumni, and even strangers who had been moved by her journey. Each dollar contributed was a testament to the power of one person's courage to inspire collective action. Evelyn, however, remained grounded despite the growing attention. She continued her duties at Lincoln High with the same dedication she always had, arriving early each morning to ensure the school was spotless before the first bell rang. Yet there was a noticeable change in how people interacted with her. Teachers who once barely acknowledged her presence now greeted her warmly in the hallways. Students stopped to chat during breaks, asking for advice or simply sharing snippets of their lives. Parents approached her after school events to express gratitude, telling her how her speech had motivated their children to work harder and dream bigger. Even those who had laughed at her on that fateful graduation night now apologized sincerely, admitting they had underestimated her strength and wisdom. But Evelyn didn't dwell on the past. Instead, she focused on the future, both hers and the futures of others. One of the most fulfilling aspects of her newfound role was working closely with the scholarship committee to select recipients for the Evelyn Carter Scholarship Fund. Applications flooded in from adults of all ages and backgrounds, single mothers juggling jobs and parenting while studying at night, former inmates determined to rebuild their lives through education, and retirees eager to learn new skills simply because it brought them joy. Reading these stories filled Evelyn with a profound sense of purpose. She realized that her journey wasn't unique. It was part of a larger narrative about overcoming obstacles and refusing to give up. Each recipient of the scholarship became a source of pride for Evelyn. There was Maria, a 32-year-old mother of two who dreamed of becoming a nurse, James, a 45-year-old mechanic hoping to earn his associate degree in engineering, and Ruth, a 60-year-old grandmother determined to finish high school so she could set an example for her grandchildren. Evelyn met with them individually, offering words of encouragement and sharing her own experiences. "You don't have to be perfect," she would tell them. "Just keep moving forward, one step at a time." As word of Evelyn's impact spread, invitations began arriving from schools across the country, asking her to speak at their graduations. At first she hesitated, unsure if she had anything meaningful left to say after her initial speech. But when she thought about the countless young minds waiting to hear a message of hope, she couldn't say no. So, suitcase in hand, Evelyn embarked on a journey unlike any she had ever imagined. A journey that took her from small-town auditoriums to packed gymnasiums in big cities. Her speeches varied depending on the audience, but the core message remained the same. Your worth isn't defined by your circumstances. In one particularly memorable address, she stood before a group of inner-city graduates whose lives had been shaped by poverty and violence. "I know what it feels like to be told you're not enough," she said, her voice steady, yet filled with emotion. "I've been laughed at, dismissed, and overlooked, but let me tell you something, I'm still standing here today and so will you. Because greatness isn't about where you start, it's about where you choose to go." After each speech, Evelyn stayed behind to meet students and answer questions. Many confided in her, sharing their fears about the future and doubts about their abilities. To each one, she offered the same advice. Don't let fear stop you. Take things one day at a time and don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it. Her words resonated deeply, often bringing tears to the eyes of both students and parents alike. Back home, Evelyn faced challenges of her own. While she loved traveling and speaking, balancing her responsibilities at Lincoln High proved difficult. Cleaning schedules clashed with travel plans, and late nights spent preparing speeches left her exhausted. Some days she questioned whether she was spreading herself too thin. But every time doubt crept in, she reminded herself why she was doing this, to show others that it's never too late to chase your dreams. Her efforts weren't without reward. As more people heard her story, opportunities arose that Evelyn never anticipated. A local community college invited her to teach a weekly evening class on personal development, drawing on her experiences to mentor adult learners. A publishing company reached out, offering to turn her speeches and reflections into a book titled, From Floors to Dreams, Finding Your Worth When Others Underestimate You. Though the idea of writing a book intimidated her, Evelyn agreed. knowing it could reach even more people struggling to find their place in the world. Writing the book proved to be one of the hardest tasks Evelyn had ever undertaken. Sitting down at her kitchen table with a blank notebook, she wondered how she could possibly capture the depth of her journey in words. But as she wrote, memories came flooding back, the laughter, the struggles, the moments of triumph, and soon the pages began to fill. With the help of an editor, Evelyn transformed her raw thoughts into a compelling narrative that spoke directly to readers' hearts. When the book was finally published, it became an instant bestseller, earning praise from critics and readers alike. Despite her growing fame, Evelyn remained humble. She refused to move away from her small apartment, insisting it held too many cherished memories. She continued working at Lincoln High, believing that staying connected to the school kept her grounded. And though she traveled frequently, she always made time for the people who mattered most, her family, friends, and the students who had become like family over the years. One of the most touching moments came when Lincoln High decided to honor Evelyn permanently. During a special assembly, the principal unveiled a plaque mounted near the entrance of the school. It read, "Dedicated to Evelyn Carter, whose courage and kindness remind us that true greatness lies within the heart." As Evelyn stood beside the plaque, surrounded by cheering students and faculty members, she felt overwhelmed with gratitude. This was more than recognition. It was proof that her life had made a difference. Looking back on everything she had accomplished, Evelyn marveled at how much had changed since that night on the stage. What started as a simple act of courage had blossomed into a movement that touched thousands of lives. She had gone from being dismissed as just the janitor to becoming a beacon of hope for anyone who doubted their potential. Her journey taught her and everyone else that success isn't measured by wealth or status, but by the positive impact we have on those around us. Yet for all the accolades and achievements, Evelyn's greatest legacy was the way she inspired others to believe in themselves. Whether it was a student deciding to apply for college, a parent returning to school to set an example for their child, or a stranger picking up her book and finding the strength to try again, Evelyn's influence rippled outward in ways she could never fully measure. She had shown the world that greatness isn't confined to titles or professions. It lives within the hearts of those brave enough to rise above adversity. And so, Evelyn's story continued to unfold, chapter by chapter, inspiring countless others to rewrite their own narratives. What began as a single moment of bravery had blossomed into a lifelong mission to uplift and empower. Evelyn proved that sometimes the most unexpected voices are the ones that change the world, and that laughter can turn into awe when someone dares to step into the spotlight and shine. As Evelyn's influence continued to grow, she found herself reflecting deeply on the unexpected twists her life had taken. What began as a routine night at a high school graduation ceremony had turned into a whirlwind of opportunities, challenges, and profound personal growth. Yet amidst all the changes, one thing remained constant: her unwavering belief in the power of kindness and perseverance. She often reminded herself that no matter how far she traveled, or how many stages she stood on, her roots were still firmly planted in the small town where it all began. One of the most significant shifts in Evelyn's life was the way people viewed her role at Lincoln High School. Before her speech, she had been seen as just another staff member tasked with keeping the building clean. Now, students and teachers alike regarded her as an integral part of the school community, a mentor, a confidant, and even a role model. This newfound respect wasn't lost on her, but Evelyn refused to let it inflate her ego. Instead, she used her position to advocate for others who might be overlooked or underestimated. For instance, when a group of cafeteria workers expressed frustration about low wages and lack of recognition, Evelyn stepped up to amplify their voices. She organized meetings with the school administration, urging them to address the concerns of these essential employees. "We're not asking for much," she told the principal during one such meeting. "Just acknowledgement that our work matters. These women feed hungry kids every day, and without them, this school wouldn't function." Her efforts paid off when the district agreed to increase pay and provide additional benefits for cafeteria staff. It was a small victory, but it reinforced Evelyn's belief that speaking up could lead to meaningful change. Meanwhile, her book, From Floors to Dreams, became a national sensation, sparking conversations across the country about resilience, self-worth, and the importance of second chances. Readers from diverse backgrounds wrote letters sharing how Evelyn's story had resonated with them. A young woman named Lisa, who had dropped out of college after struggling with anxiety, wrote, "To say she was re-enrolling because of Evelyn's words. Your book reminded me that failure isn't final," Lisa said. "Thank you for giving me the courage to try again." Evelyn also received invitations to appear on television shows and podcasts, where hosts eagerly asked her to share insights from her journey. At first, the idea of being interviewed made her nervous. She worried about saying the wrong thing or coming across as unpolished. But as she sat across from seasoned journalists and charismatic hosts, she realized something important. Authenticity was more powerful than perfection. When she spoke honestly about her struggles and triumphs, audiences responded with overwhelming support. One host summed it up perfectly during a live broadcast. "Evelyn, your story proves that real strength comes not from avoiding hardship but from facing it head-on." Despite her growing fame, Evelyn never forgot the lessons she had learned along the way. She knew that success wasn't about accolades or material wealth. It was about making a difference in the lives of others. That belief guided her as she expanded her outreach beyond Lincoln High. Inspired by the success of the scholarship fund, Evelyn partnered with local organizations to create workshops aimed at empowering underprivileged adults. These workshops covered everything from financial literacy to interview skills, equipping participants with tools they needed to navigate life's challenges. One participant, a man named Marcus, stood out to Evelyn. He had served time in prison for a crime he committed in his youth and struggled to reintegrate into society upon release. Jobs were scarce, and landlords refused to rent to him due to his record. Desperate for a fresh start, Marcus enrolled in one of Evelyn's workshops. Over several weeks, he learned how to write a compelling resume, practice mock interviews, and manage his finances responsibly. By the end of the program, Marcus landed a job at a construction company and moved into his own apartment. On the last day of the workshop, he approached Evelyn with tears in his eyes. "I don't know how to thank you," he said. "You didn't just teach me skills, you gave me hope." Stories like Marcus's fueled Evelyn's determination to keep pushing forward. She understood that while her journey had been remarkable, there were countless others whose stories deserved to be heard. To that end, she began hosting storytelling events in the community, inviting individuals to share their experiences of overcoming adversity. These gatherings brought together people from different walks of life, fostering empathy and connection. Attendees left feeling inspired and united, knowing they weren't alone in their struggles. Of course, Evelyn's path wasn't without its hurdles. As her responsibilities multiplied, so did the demands on her time and energy. Balancing her duties at Lincoln High with her speaking engagements, writing projects, and advocacy work became increasingly difficult. Some days, exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her. There were mornings when she woke up questioning whether she could keep going, whether the sacrifices were worth it. But then she'd think about the faces of the students she mentored, the scholarship recipients pursuing their dreams, and the strangers who reached out to thank her for changing their perspective, and she'd find the strength to push through. Her family played a crucial role in helping her stay grounded. Clara, her best friend since childhood, remained her biggest cheerleader, offering encouragement whenever doubt crept in. "Evie, you've already done more than most people dream of doing in a lifetime," Clara would remind her. "Take it, one day at a time, and don't forget to breathe." Even Evelyn's siblings, scattered across different states, rallied around her, sending care packages and heartfelt notes to show their support. The turning point came when Evelyn decided to scale back slightly, focusing on quality over quantity. Rather than accepting every invitation to speak or participate in events, she prioritized activities that aligned with her values and allowed her to make the greatest impact. This decision not only eased her workload, but also deepened her connection with the causes she cared about most. For example, she poured her energy into expanding the scholarship fund, ensuring it reached even more deserving individuals. She also launched a podcast titled Rising Above, where she interviewed everyday heroes, people who had faced incredible odds, yet emerged stronger on the other side. Through the podcast, Evelyn discovered new dimensions of storytelling. Each episode highlighted someone's unique journey, from a single mother raising 3 children while earning her degree to a veteran battling PTSD and finding solace in art therapy. Listeners tuned in weekly, eager to hear these tales of resilience and transformation. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive, with many saying the podcast gave them hope during tough times. "Your guests remind me that I'm capable of overcoming anything," one listener wrote. "Thank you for shining a light on ordinary people doing extraordinary things." As Evelyn's reach expanded, so did her understanding of what true success looked like. It wasn't about fame or fortune. It was about creating spaces where people felt seen, heard, and valued. Whether she was mentoring a student, advocating for workers' rights, or simply listening to someone's story, Evelyn approached every interaction with compassion and humility. Her ability to connect with others transcended age, race, and socioeconomic status, proving that kindness is a universal language. By the time another graduation season rolled around, Evelyn had become a fixture at ceremonies nationwide. Schools clamored to have her speak, knowing her message would resonate with graduates embarking on uncertain futures. During one particularly poignant address, she stood before a sea of caps and gowns and delivered a line that would later go viral. "Life will knock you down, but it's not about how hard you fall, it's about how high you rise." The crowd erupted in applause, chanting her name long after she left the stage. Looking back on her journey, Evelyn marveled at how far she had come, not just geographically, but emotionally and spiritually. She had faced judgment, laughter, and doubt, yet she had risen above it all. Her story proved that greatness isn't confined to titles or professions. It lives within the hearts of those brave enough to rise above adversity. And though she remained humble, Evelyn couldn't help but feel proud of the legacy she was building, one built on kindness, resilience, and unwavering faith in the power of second chances. Years later, Evelyn's name continued to inspire generations. Schools across the country invited her to speak at graduations, eager for their students to hear her transformative message. What began as a single moment of courage had blossomed into a lifelong mission to uplift and empower others. Evelyn proved that sometimes the most unexpected voices are the ones that change the world, and that laughter can turn into awe when someone dares to step into the spotlight and shine. By the time Evelyn reached her late 50s, she had become a household name in towns and cities across the country. Her journey from being underestimated as just the janitor to becoming a national symbol of resilience and hope was nothing short of extraordinary. Yet despite all the recognition and accolades, Evelyn remained deeply rooted in her values, kindness, humility, and an unwavering belief in the potential of others. She often reminded herself that her purpose wasn't about personal glory. It was about creating opportunities for people who might otherwise feel invisible. One of the most transformative developments in Evelyn's life during this period was the expansion of her scholarship fund. What had started as a local initiative grew into a nationwide program, supporting adults seeking to continue their education. The Evelyn Carter Scholarship Fund became synonymous with second chances, helping recipients pursue everything, from GEDs to advanced degrees. Each year, hundreds of applications poured in from individuals eager to rewrite their stories. Evelyn personally reviewed many of them, taking the time to write personalized notes of encouragement to each applicant, whether they were selected or not. Among the recipients was Sarah, a 38-year-old single mother of 2 who dreamed of becoming a teacher. For years, Sarah had worked multiple jobs to provide for her children, putting her own dreams on hold. When she received the scholarship, she broke down in tears, overwhelmed by the opportunity to finally chase her passion. Another recipient was Michael, a former soldier struggling with PTSD who wanted to earn a degree in psychology to help other veterans cope with trauma. Each story touched Evelyn deeply, reinforcing her belief that everyone deserves a chance to thrive. The success of the scholarship fund inspired Evelyn to dream even bigger. She envisioned a network of resource centers across the country where adults could access free tutoring, career counseling, and mentorship programs. With the help of donors and volunteers, she launched the first center in her hometown, naming the Rising Above Center. The facility quickly became a hub of activity, offering workshops on resume building, financial planning, and emotional wellness. Local businesses donated equipment and supplies, while retired professionals volunteered their expertise to guide participants. Within months, the center was thriving, proving that community-driven initiatives could make a real difference. As word of the center spread, other towns began reaching out asking Evelyn for guidance on establishing similar programs. She traveled extensively, sharing her blueprint for success and encouraging communities to take ownership of their projects. In one small town in Texas, a group of parents transformed an abandoned library into a vibrant learning space after attending one of Evelyn's workshops. They named it Carter's Corner in her honor, sending her photos of smiling students and proud volunteers. Seeing these grassroots efforts flourish filled Evelyn with immense pride. She realized that her mission had evolved beyond inspiring individuals. It was now about empowering entire communities. Despite her growing influence, Evelyn never lost sight of the simple joys that had sustained her throughout her life. She continued working part-time at Lincoln High School, finding comfort in the familiar routines of mopping floors and organizing classrooms. To her, the school wasn't just a workplace, it was home. Over the years, she had formed deep bonds with countless students, some of whom returned to visit long after graduation. One such visitor was Jamal, a former student who had once struggled with anger issues and poor grades. Thanks to Evelyn's patient guidance, he had turned his life around and was now pursuing a degree in social work. "You saved me, Ms. Carter," he told her during one reunion. "I'll never forget what you did for me." Evelyn also cherished her friendships, particularly with Clara, who remained her closest confidant. The two women spent hours reminiscing about old times, laughing over shared memories, and discussing the challenges of navigating fame. Clara often teased Evelyn about her newfound celebrity status, jokingly calling her the accidental icon. But beneath the humor lay genuine admiration. "Evie, you've changed so many lives, including mine," Clara said one evening over tea. "I'm proud of you." While Evelyn's public life flourished, her private moments were filled with quiet reflection. She kept a journal where she documented her thoughts, fears, and aspirations. Writing helped her process the whirlwind of emotions that came with her unexpected rise to prominence. On particularly tough days when self-doubt crept in, she flipped through the pages of her journal, reminding herself of how far she had come. "If I can stand on that stage and speak my truth, I can handle anything," she wrote in bold letters on one page. It became her mantra, a reminder of her inner strength. Her advocacy work extended beyond education and community building. Inspired by her experiences growing up in poverty, Evelyn began speaking out about systemic issues affecting marginalized communities. She partnered with nonprofit organizations to address food insecurity, affordable housing shortages, and healthcare disparities. During one event, she delivered a powerful speech about the importance of investing in underserved neighborhoods. "When we lift up those at the bottom, we lift up everyone," she declared, earning a standing ovation from the audience. Her words resonated widely, sparking conversations about equity and justice. Another milestone came when Evelyn was invited to deliver the keynote address at a major education conference in Washington, D.C. Standing before thousands of educators, policymakers, and activists, she shared her vision for a more inclusive and compassionate society. "Education is not just about textbooks and exams," she said. "It's about believing in someone's potential, even when they don't believe in themselves. It's about seeing the person behind the struggle and saying, 'You matter.'" Her message struck a chord, prompting several attendees to approach her afterward to express their gratitude. One young teacher hugged her tightly, tears streaming down her face. "Your words gave me hope," she whispered. "Thank you for reminding me why I chose this profession." Back home, Evelyn faced new challenges as Lincoln High School underwent significant changes. Budget cuts threatened to eliminate vital programs, including the arts and extracurricular activities that had enriched students' lives for decades. Determined to protect these resources, Evelyn joined forces with teachers, parents, and alumni to organize fundraisers and awareness campaigns. Their efforts paid off when the school board agreed to preserve the programs, citing overwhelming community support. Once again, Evelyn proved that collective action could yield meaningful results. Her activism also brought criticism from certain quarters. Some accused her of overstepping her role as a janitor turned author, questioning her qualifications to weigh in on complex societal issues. Evelyn handled the backlash with grace, refusing to engage in arguments or defend her right to speak. Instead, she focused on amplifying the voices of those directly impacted by the problems she addressed. "This isn't about me," she told a reporter during an interview. "It's about giving a platform to people whose stories need to be heard." As the years passed, Evelyn's legacy continued to grow. Schools, libraries, and community centers across the country began hosting annual events celebrating her contributions to education and empowerment. Awards bearing her name were established to recognize individuals making a difference in their communities. Even Hollywood took notice, optioning her book, From Floors to Dreams, for a biographical film. Though the idea of seeing her life portrayed on screen excited her, Evelyn insisted on maintaining creative control to ensure the story stayed true to its roots. Through it all, Evelyn remained committed to her core mission: uplifting others. Whether she was mentoring a struggling student, advocating for policy changes, or simply lending an ear to someone in need, she approached every interaction with empathy and sincerity. Her ability to connect with people transcended barriers, proving that kindness is a universal language. As one journalist aptly put it, Evelyn Carter doesn't just inspire, you leave a conversation with her feeling like you can conquer the world. Looking back on her journey, Evelyn marveled at how much had changed since that night on the stage. What started as a moment of vulnerability had blossomed into a movement that touched thousands of lives. She had gone from being dismissed as just the janitor to becoming a beacon of hope for anyone who doubted their potential. Her story taught her, and everyone else, that success isn't measured by wealth or status but by the positive impact we have on those around us. Yet, for all the accolades and achievements, Evelyn's greatest legacy was the way she inspired others to believe in themselves. Whether it was a student deciding to apply for college, a parent returning to school to set an example for their child, or a stranger picking up her book and finding the strength to try again, Evelyn's influence rippled outward in ways she could never fully measure. She had shown the world that greatness isn't confined to titles or professions. It lives within the hearts of those brave enough to rise above adversity. And so, Evelyn's story continued to unfold, chapter by chapter, inspiring countless others to rewrite their own narratives. What began as a single moment of bravery had blossomed into a lifelong mission to uplift and empower. Evelyn proved that sometimes the most unexpected voices are. As Evelyn entered her 60s, she began to think more deeply about the kind of legacy she wanted to leave behind. Her life had been a tapestry of challenges, triumphs, and transformations, but she knew that true impact wasn't measured by what people said about her while she was alive. It was about the seeds she planted that would continue to grow long after she was gone. With this in mind, Evelyn decided to focus her remaining years on ensuring that her work endured beyond her presence. One of her first steps was to establish a foundation dedicated to lifelong learning and empowerment. The Evelyn Carter Foundation aimed to provide resources, mentorship, and advocacy for underserved communities across the country. Unlike many large organizations, Evelyn insisted that the foundation remain grassroots-focused, prioritizing local input and collaboration over top-down decision-making. She believed that sustainable change could only happen when people were empowered to lead their own efforts. "We don't need saviors," she often said during meetings with potential partners. "We need supporters, people who listen, learn, and lift others up." The foundation quickly gained traction, thanks in part to Evelyn's reputation and network. Donors flocked to contribute, eager to be part of something meaningful. Schools, libraries, and community centers partnered with the foundation to create programs tailored to their unique needs. In one rural town, A group of teachers used funding from the foundation to launch a literacy initiative targeting adults who had never learned to read. Within a year, dozens of participants were reading bedtime stories to their children for the first time. Another project focused on providing free mental health counseling to low-income families, helping them navigate the stresses of daily life. These initiatives reminded Evelyn of why she had started this journey, to give people the tools they needed to thrive. Her advocacy also expanded into new areas, particularly around dismantling systemic barriers that kept marginalized groups from succeeding. Evelyn became a vocal supporter of criminal justice reform, speaking out against policies that disproportionately affected Black and brown communities. She visited prisons and juvenile detention centers, sharing her story with inmates and encouraging them to believe in their ability to change. "I've made mistakes too," she told a group of young men during one visit. "But your past doesn't define you. What matters is how you choose to move forward." Her words resonated deeply, prompting several inmates to enroll in educational programs offered inside the facility. At the same time, Evelyn recognized the importance of nurturing the next generation of leaders. She began mentoring young activists and educators, teaching them how to organize, advocate, and build coalitions. One of her mentees, a fiery 22-year-old named Jasmine, went on to found a nonprofit focused on STEM education for girls of color. "Evelyn taught me that leadership isn't about being perfect, it's about showing up even when you're scared," Jasmine said during an interview. "She's my hero." Despite her busy schedule, Evelyn still found joy in the simple pleasures of life. She loved spending weekends tending to her garden, where vibrant flowers and vegetables flourished under her care. Neighbors often stopped by to chat or admire her handiwork, and Evelyn always welcomed them with a warm smile and a cup of tea. These moments of connection grounded her, reminding her of the beauty in everyday interactions. Her health, however, began to slow her down. Years of hard work and travel had taken a toll, and Evelyn started experiencing fatigue and joint pain. A doctor diagnosed her with arthritis, advising her to scale back on physical activities. Reluctantly, she reduced her hours at Lincoln High School, allowing younger staff members to take over some of her duties. Though it pained her to step away from the place that had shaped so much of her life, she knew it was necessary. "Change is hard," she confided in Clara one evening. "But sometimes letting go is the best thing we can do, for ourselves and for others." Even as her body grew weaker, Evelyn's spirit remained unshakable. She continued writing, using her journal as a space to reflect on her journey and offer guidance to future generations. Her entries ranged from practical advice, "Don't be afraid to ask for help," to heartfelt reflections, "Kindness costs nothing, but it means everything." When she felt ready, she compiled these thoughts into a second book titled Lessons from the Heart, which became another bestseller. Readers praised its wisdom and authenticity, calling it a guidebook for living with purpose and grace. In her final years, Evelyn returned to Lincoln High School one last time, not as a janitor or guest speaker, but as an honored alumna. The Bao School had decided to name its newly renovated auditorium after her, the Evelyn Carter Auditorium. During the dedication ceremony, students performed songs and skits inspired by her life, while alumni shared stories of how she had impacted their journeys. As Evelyn sat in the front row, tears streaming down her face, she felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. This wasn't just recognition. It was love, pure and simple. By the time Evelyn passed away at the age of 67, her legacy was firmly cemented in the hearts of those she had touched. Thousands attended her memorial service, filling the streets of her hometown with laughter, music, and memories. Teachers spoke of her kindness, students recalled her wisdom, and strangers shared how her story had inspired them to pursue their dreams. Even those who had once doubted her now mourned her loss, acknowledging the profound impact she had on their lives. Today, Evelyn's influence lives on through the countless individuals and communities she uplifted. The Rising Above centers continue to thrive, offering support and resources to adults seeking second chances. The Evelyn Carter Scholarship Fund has helped thousands earn degrees and certifications, transforming their futures. And her books remain staples in classrooms and homes, reminding readers that greatness lies within everyone, regardless of their circumstances. Perhaps most importantly, Evelyn's story serves as a testament to the power of courage and compassion. She proved that no obstacle is insurmountable, no dream too big, and no act of kindness too small. Her journey reminds us that success isn't defined by titles or wealth, but by the positive ripples we create in the lives of others. Whether it's a student graduating despite the odds, a single mother pursuing her degree, or a former inmate rebuilding his life, Evelyn's legacy endures in every person who dares to rise above. Years later, when people talk about Evelyn Carter, they don't just remember her achievements, they remember her heart. They remember the woman who stood on a stage and stunned them all, not with grand gestures or lofty speeches, but with raw honesty and unwavering belief in humanity. They remember the janitor who laughed in the face of doubt and showed the world that laughter can turn into awe when someone dares to shine. And so Evelyn's story continues to inspire, chapter by chapter, generation by generation. It's a story about resilience, hope, and the extraordinary power of ordinary people to change the world. Because sometimes, the most unexpected voices are the ones that resonate the loudest, and Evelyn Carter's voice will echo forever.